where I'm now past my prime, expiry date खत्म हो गया, अभी इसको जाके बस छुप जाना चाहिए कहीं पे. Friends will say कि why are you so anxious to do more in life? Why are you so ambitious? अब कर लिया ना, हो गया ना सब, तो अब और क्या करना है? And I'm like, I have so much more to do. I'm just beginning. So the sign of a maturing marriage and a great marriage is, I think, when you can sit on the sofa and just be silent.
एजिज्म सबसे पहले कब देखा और क्या हुआ?
40s के करीब I think it started, and in the first few years I didn't notice it so much, but at some point I started feeling, towards my late 40s I started feeling that I get this conversation from people where I'm now past my prime, expiry date खत्म हो गया, अभी इसको जाके बस छुप जाना चाहिए कहीं पे.
What are the things do they say?
कि why are you so ambitious? अब तो बच्ची की शादी हो गई है, अब become a grandmother now, enjoy that phase of your life. And I once went to a mall, and I love poking around in malls, and when I'm not writing, I love to go to shopping centers and just look around. That's like you say, that for a writer it's so important to know what's going on in life, and that's typically I go around, hang around, sit in a coffee shop. So I went to a mall, and I went to so many malls, of course, in those years. And I went to this big cosmetics store, and there was a pipsqueak there, must be 18 or 20 or whatever. And I said, I want a red lipstick. And I showed him, can I have that red lipstick? And he said, ma'am, आपको मैं ब्राउन दिखा दूं? आपके एज के आंटीज है ना, वो ब्राउन पहनते हैं, रेड नहीं पहनते हैं. एंड इफ आई डिडंट केयर अबाउट social media and people looking at me, I would have given him a tight one there. But the gall of that guy to say कि आपके age के aunty लोग red नहीं पहनते, brown पहनते. So I said, did I ask you? No, right? So then give me that red lipstick. And I came back home hopping mad, like I said, how dare, like nobody has any business telling me what color to wear, what hair, what length of hair. There is this thing, people keep saying, now you're aging, cut your hair short, because, then you look younger. Maybe I don't want to look younger. It's my choice.
Wow.
Similarly, I went to a very big global brand of denims. So I went and I said, can I have a size 32, in boot cut? I said, ma'am, nobody wears boot cut. And then he said, ma'am, in any case, we don't make above size 30. And the look he gave, like I want to know how many women past their 40s have a size 30 waist. It's not possible. I mean, unless you're killing yourself in the gym.
Absolutely.
Because
and yet that is the norm. The
hormones have gone, crazy. Your body is changing so much, and nobody knows anything about it. And so the biggest jean brand in the world doesn't know this. And instead, I wanted to tell that guy that I can spend that 10 grand that your pair of jeans cost, not that girl who has a size 24 waist. She probably has to swipe her mother's credit card. I have the money, so you damn well made jeans for me for size 32. So this is where ageism started
like everywhere me. In society.
Everywhere. Your friends will say, why are you so anxious to do more in life? Why are you so ambitious? कर लिया ना अब कर लिया ना, हो गया ना सब, तो अब और क्या करना है? And I'm like, I have so much more to do. I'm just beginning, And so
how do you respond to that?
With friends, I give a very pained smile, because you can't fight with your friends. But like the guy who told me, you don't wear brown lipstick, you wear brown lipstick. I said कि आपका काम है वो रेड लिपस्टिक का सेल करना, तो आप मुझे वो बेचो, मैं आपको पैसे दूंगी, and that's it. You don't have to give me beauty advice till I ask you for it. And you don't get very popular when you speak your mind. But then I think the thing about going past your 40s and into your 50s is also that You get to drop the filters and speak your mind.
Yes, yes, you really are. You're like, बहुत हो गया.
Yes.
So
And
speaking,
that all your life you've been nice and pleasant and smiling, and that's what you were taught to do when,
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
when you were growing up. That good women have to be pleasant, good women have to smile, and bas ab nahi hota. Ab now I want to say the things that I feel when society comes at me with unasked for opinions and judgment, then I feel then they deserve to hear what I feel too.
But Sudha, any advice for all of us who keep hearing about ageist comments all the time? कुछ जो हम अपने आप को बोले उस वक्त, not to get hopping mad.
Own yourself, own your story, be yourself. Like when I turned 50, I wrote this book.
Yeah. Yes, I love it.
Yeah, Feisty at 50. I wrote this book because I was so done with all the opinion mongers and all of them telling me what to do with my life. I said, let me write a book. And I cannot tell you, Raksha, after I wrote this book, my DMs are full and full and full, and Facebook messages of women reaching out to me and saying, wow, you've written about my life. How did you know? And that's when I realized that this is such a universal thing, women, how they are treated across the world because of Instagram and social media and all of that. Women from other parts of the globe write to me and they've seen somebody once sent me a picture of, there was some lady who I didn't know who saw another lady I didn't know who was reading this book and laughing away on her flight. So she took that picture and she sent it to me and said, I hope you feel good you wrote this book because somebody is reading this and
Laughing.
having a great time.
Great.
And so my advice always is that, you've done your bit. You've earned the right to be who you are. By the time you're in your 40s and 50s, you have proven all that you wanted to prove.
So enjoy.
Yeah. So you enjoy your life. Don't sweat the small stuff. Shed the baggage and just be you.
Yeah.
That's what I do now. And I find it incredibly liberating to be just who you are.
Yeah. Thank you.
No more pretensions.
Sudha, you've been married for 30 years. So one thing that has changed in your couple relationship?
I think this is another universal thing that, we all set out in our marriage with great romantic dreams. The first few years are full of, dates and romance and candlelight and sex and all of that. Then come the children and then come the, competing demands of family, your social, social obligations, your careers are taking off. And somewhere couples tend to, drift apart.
Yes, absolutely.
Silences start appearing in the marriage. And this is a truth for every marriage, or at least most of the marriages.
Yeah.
That when the rest of the stuff come into the picture, when you get married, it's just both of you, isn't it? And you're just in that world.
Yeah.
But when the rest of the stuff comes in, inevitably there will be some resentment, there will be some disagreement, there will be all of that, and then some distance, and it is natural. You can't have that peak romance all times. I found with my husband, and like when I reached 50, and he's 3 years older to me, and when the marriage matures, the sign of a maturing marriage and a great marriage is, I think, when you can sit on the sofa and just be silent, watch a movie, do nothing. Like most evenings in my house, when I'm a caretaker to my mother who has dementia. So during that time, we are not there with each other. But when I'm off duty from that responsibility, we just find it's so comforting to just sit on the sofa and watch a movie, or just garam doodh peete. We have masala doodh and we sit and we just chat about, we have a beautiful house with a beautiful garden, a balcony garden. We sit there and just enjoy the quiet. In the earlier stage of my marriage, my husband is a very quiet person. In the earlier years of my marriage, I would resent it when he was not talking, because I would think he's not interested anymore.
Oh.
But after all your responsibilities are done, and when the house is empty and it's just both of you, you realize that every silence doesn't have to be punctuated with conversation or noise. It's just okay to just be quiet. And I think what changes is that mad need for you to go out as a couple, be seen, prove how romantic everything is, and candlelight dinners. All of that
That is
doesn't happen, mostly because you don't want it to, because you finally realize that home is where your special person is. Happiness is where so your home becomes your retreat. And that is how it is
Wow.
with Prashant and me. Like,
Wow. Beautiful.
if somebody told me that you have to go out on a weekend, I'm like, oh my God, please. I love to be around him, and we'll go for a walk. Sometimes we live in a gated community, which is very green and very quiet. So sometimes after dinner, after the world has gone to sleep, 11:30, we'll go for a walk. And that's when I feel like I'm lucky to have this person, with me, who doesn't want the hustle all the time. Like,
Wow.
it's quiet and accepting, and
Lovely.
that's what changes. That all the expectations drop off,
Yeah.
and you just learn to accept each other as you are.
God.
Initial years, you're trying to change each
Yes.
other.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. How did your mom cope with the depression she felt after your father passed away?
Oh, it was very difficult, because she had gotten married to him when she was 16, and they spent, I think, 60 years together.
60 years together. Yeah.
Almost 60 years together. And he was much older than her. He was 32 and she was 16 when they got married. But like I said, partners can be each other's homes. He was her home, so when he went away, she just slipped into like the most horrifying depression. And we were beginning to think that she's never going to come out of this. And then my sister lives in the UK, and there is another daughter. So we three sisters decided that we have to do something last ditch to get this situation in control. So I told my sister that I'll come with her to London. And my sister was traveling away to Sweden. So the house was empty. It was a beautiful house with a beautiful garden. And so my mother and I moved in. And the first week was terrible because, again, change of place. Plus, she was missing my father because they used to visit that house and sit on that swing.
Oh my God. Yeah,
so she missed him even more. And then I figured out one day that the thing that brings the most joy to my mother is cooking. She loves cooking, and she loved to cook for her husband and feed her family and his friends. And so every day, I would wake up in the morning and I would tell her, what are you cooking for me today? And then suddenly that joy would come in. And then she would say, oh, today I'm making dosa. And then afternoon, I'm making a South Indian meal, and I'll make avial and sambar and all of that. And then I would eat, and, we would have these great conversations at the dining table, just me and her. And I think after my marriage, it was the first time ever that I was getting a quiet time with my mother. When women get married, they sort of stop having those big conversations with their parents because they are so much,
they have to take care of,
engaged in their own lives that they forget to have that those intimate, cozy conversations with their parents. It's just a quick visit, spend some time, and then you're back home.
Yeah.
So this summer that I spent with my mother, so we would talk about food, and then she started talking to me about growing up in Kerala and how I was telling her how farm to table is a concept now. And she said, "Usme kya hai? Main jab badi ho rahi thi in Kerala," she said, our kitchen garden was right behind the kitchen. And she says, if we had a sudden guest, my mom would send me off to pluck drumsticks from the tree. And the leaves of the drumstick would make a beautiful toran. It's a stir fry. And the drumstick would go into a sambar. And then she said there is always papad at home. And then raw mango plucked fresh from the tree, roast red chilies, and there is a chutney to go with. So a complete meal, farm to table. And she said, in your this generation, y'all are doing too much. You're glamorizing stuff. This is how I grew up. Like everything was grown in our garden.
So conversations, cooking.
Yeah. And then I decided that because there were so many memories coming, Raksha, of food and joy and finding yourself through food, that I said, I'm going to take down. My mother has dementia. So the dementia had already set in by then. 2 years before my dad passed, she had been diagnosed with dementia. So I said, before she forgets all those recipes. Let me take them down.
And that
so-
got her out.
That got her out. So then I would say, tell me about this avial. Where did you learn this? And this is a book, Raksha. This is a book.
Wow.
And so
And
this for me is a jar of memories. It turned out to be that, because it was like opening a jar and all those memories came running out.
So she wrote it herself.
I wrote it.
And she was telling you.
When she was. I didn't take down the recipes initially. I just took down the memories of that food, what she associated it, how was that food made in her house. And then I said, this is so amazing because I've got recipes from our family, which has come down the generations.
Wow.
So I took all of that down and then I came back home. And then I forgot about, like when I came back home, then, when we returned to India, that project went on hold because, my other books took over writing them. And then COVID happened. And
So
then
then,
I'm
when did she
stuck
get
at
back
home. I'm stuck at home and I said, this is the time to write,
Oh.
start writing. So initially I had thought it would be mom's recipe book. And it was not supposed to be a book or something. It was just supposed to be a family book of recipes. Then I said, this is so amazing. If this one woman has so many memories in this lifetime, I want to talk to other women and men who have cooked for their families. And I want to, sort of become the keeper of those recipes, family heirloom recipes.
So, but this, when your mother told you, that is like, how did that play a role in her getting out of depression?
I think it brought her so much joy
This was when you were in the UK.
in the UK in
So,
2016.
speaking about the recipes and
Yes, talking about because she learned any cooking she knew from her. She had three aunts. None of them were married, and they lived in this big rambling house in Kerala. That's our ancestral home, and they all had their careers, but they lived together in that beautiful house surrounded by mango orchards and all of that. And
so the memory and the
memory.
thing that,
So every recipe had a memory attached to it. So
okay.
she started talking about that. And then through that, I also started realizing that she would say, but my mom said that when you're cooking, you should be totally focused. And when you're cooking, so many learnings about how being around the people you love teaches you life lessons without them giving you a bhashan. So around cooking and those conversations
wow,
in the
she got out
kitchen,
of it, yeah.
so many things were learned. And then she spoke about all of them. And it was like a big, venting session. And it was also, I think, somewhere she rediscovered joy when she started.
Wow, beautiful.
By the time we came back, my mom was much cheerful, much more cheerful, I think, than she had ever been after he passed.
Lovely.
So, and then when she came back, she started cooking because she had spent the summer cooking for me.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, I think depression ke liye, I mean, this is a lot of us go through this. I think women over 40s, because of menopause, so many unrecorded things happen
Absolutely.
in a woman's life.
So, Sudha, how do we up our own game at 50, 55? You're almost 58. So, how do we up our own game? Yeah.
I think the first thing, of course, to do is for women, I would not go into the 55. I think that phase comes much earlier in a woman's life. When upping your game is required, I think once you hit 50, your own body tells you that you're not your body and mind tells you that
Correct.
you're not the same person you used to be.
Correct.
And I think the first requirement for any woman who wants to live a happy, content, fulfilled life after 50 is that she has to reimagine her life.
Okay.
It is so important because you're not the same person.
So, what do you mean by reimagining?
You spend the last 50 years of your life doing one particular thing. And I say that change, your body has changed, your mind has changed, and it is ready now to take on the next phase of your life. And
so, what did you do?
I wrote this book.
Okay.
And
so, you wrote a book for the first time at 50?
No. This is my fifth book. This is my, no, I said 5 State 50 I wrote
okay.
because I felt that Like I
Okay.
said that. Huh?
So you wrote a
but,
book?
But reimagining my life meant, for me, what I did in my 50s was I started acting.
Oh,
And so
okay.
that is a big thing for me, because I've spent from the age of 21 to 50, and now almost 59, I've been writing. So first as a journalist for 30 years, 25 years, and then as an author. So
Acting.
writing is my main, writing has been my main hat. But at 50 or 52 or something, I started acting.
And you did a commercial with Amitabh.
I did a
Bachchan.
commercial with it. Like that was like one of those days. But I told Amitabh ji when I met him, and he's a very reclusive person, but I said I have to tell him, because that will give
What
me
did you
joy.
tell him?
I told him that, Amit ji, it is so surreal, because like you were my family's hero, like my mother, my great aunt, everybody were like, Amitabh. And then here I am, standing next to you, shooting an ad with you. And I said, I just want to tell you that this is the stuff dreams are made of. You have always been that, angry young man, poor man, ordinary person who achieved greatness. And I said, look at me. I come from a small town in Mumbai, never had anything to talk for myself. And look at me here. Here I am today, standing next to you, shooting an ad. And I said, it is about what you carry here, the belief that you can do it.
So you wrote to me about writing, you told me about acting, anything else?
I'm a motivational speaker. So all of this started in my 40s.
Okay.
So I'm a motivational speaker. I travel around the country. I'm invited by top corporations to talk to their diversity and inclusion teams and top leadership and all of that. I think women also have to invest in themselves.
Invest how?
Invest in upskilling themselves. Because
upscaling means what?
Learn something new.
Okay. So learn a new skill. Okay.
Keeps your brain, keeps your brain active. Also, it gives you a purpose.
Correct.
Because most women will say in their 40s and late, 50s, that I feel कि purpose नहीं है कुछ. क्योंकि बच्चे बड़े हो गए, husband doesn't need you anymore, nobody needs you anymore.
Correct.
That is what they feel. Even if they have a career, they go through this slump, largely because of menopausal changes. So invest in yourself, invest in looking good. If you look around, you will see that women have this tendency to let go.
Yeah.
They think कि हो गया अभी बच्चे की शादी हो गई, career हो गया, सब कुछ तो किया. So, just let yourself
go.
So
invest in, absolutely. Invest in
I would say invest in yourself. Learn new things, like go out with friends, invest in friendships, invest in relationships. This is what men do that women don't do.
And that's so true.
Because so true. You call a guy at 9 in the night and say, hey, we are hanging out at this club. I can bet you my last rupee that your husband will say, the guys are hanging out, so I'll go. Would you go? Most women won't go because they are just not wired to do that. For them, everything has to be so much planned around the family.
Yeah. So keep on upscaling. And investing.
Then what women can do is, I said, invest in friendship. Go out and roam the world. You have not done that for 40 years because you are busy with career and children. So do that. And I think most important for women of that age is to help another woman.
Wow.
You have done everything. You have become this big whoever you are. Now use your experience, your time and all of that to help other women. That is so important. Many years ago, I wrote this book called Leading Ladies, Women Who Inspire India.
One inspirational story from your book, Leading Ladies of the World.
My first interview for that book, and this was in 2010, was with Ilabin Bhatt in Ahmedabad. I remember traveling to her house, and here was this tiny lady sitting on a khadi sari and sitting on a swing, and we spoke about everything and her journey. And then she said, Sudhaben, the thing that we women don't do, all these successful women that you have spoken about, if each of us spend 1 week out of our year even going to a village, going to a smaller town and talking to younger women there, helping them chase their dream, equipping them to do something with their
Wow.
lives, make something of their dreams. That is how women empowerment works. That you give back to society. Society has given you so much. Now is your time. So go to the village. The village is where most of our people are.
Yeah.
Go there, spend a week, listen to their dreams, and teach them something.